The rain hammered down like accusations, turning the asphalt into a mirror of red and blue light. Officer Derek Brennan's patrol car sat angled behind a black Mercedes sedan, engine idling, wipers cutting through the downpour in rhythmic sweeps. His partner, Officer Josh Hayes, radioed dispatch with practiced efficiency. Traffic stop Oaken 15th. Suspicious vehicle, windows tinted beyond legal limit. Brennan stepped out first, hand resting on his holster. The rain soaked through his uniform immediately, cold and insistent. Hayes followed, positioning himself at the passenger side. Their movements were choreographed, drilled into muscle memory at the academy. The Mercedes driver's window lowered with mechanical precision. A hand appeared first, dark skin visible in the cruiser's spotlight. Then a face, calm, too calm. License and registration, Brennan barked over the rain's static. The man inside kept both hands on the steering wheel. His voice was low, controlled. "May I ask why I was stopped?" Brennan's jaw tightened. "License and registration, now." A pause hung between them, stretching like wire. The driver's eyes held Brennan's gaze through the rain-streaked window. Something flickered there, not fear, but calculation. "I need you to step out of the vehicle," Brennan said, his hand moving closer to his weapon. The door opened slowly. A man in a white dress shirt and charcoal slacks emerged, rain immediately darkening the fabric. He stood with his hands visible, fingers spread. Professional, unthreatening. But Brennan saw something else. He always did. 12 hours earlier, Marcus Webb had watched the sunrise through his office window on the 5th floor of the Central Precinct building. At 48, his hair showed silver at the temples, distinguished against his dark skin. The view overlooked the parking lot, where patrol cars gathered like soldiers before deployment. His office walls told the story he'd spent 22 years writing. Academy graduation photo, 2003. Commendation for bravery, 2008. Detective promotion, 2011. Lieutenant Bars, 2015. And finally, 18 months ago, the ceremony that made him the city's first black police chief. His daughter's acceptance letter to Howard University sat in a silver frame on his desk. Maya was 19 now, studying criminal justice, following his path, though he'd never asked her to. Her mother's photo stood beside it. Diane, gone 5 years to cancer, her smile frozen in better times. Webb picked up his coffee, now cold. The morning briefing started in 20 minutes. Budget cuts, community complaints, the usual fires to extinguish. He'd learned to navigate the politics, to speak the language of councils and mayors, to translate passion into policy. The phone on his desk buzzed. Deputy Chief Sarah Chen's name flashed on screen. "Morning, Sarah. Chief, we've got a situation. Community groups organizing a protest outside the station. Next Tuesday." Her voice carried the weight of anticipation. "They're calling it Accountability March. 3 excessive force complaints this month alone." Webb rubbed his temples. "Which incidents?" "The Mason arrest, the Rodriguez stop, and something from last night still being reviewed." He made a note. "Schedule a meeting with their leadership. Today if possible." "Already done." 3 p.m. Webb smiled slightly. Chen was always 3 steps ahead. "Good work." He hung up and stared at the parking lot below. Officers climbed into patrol cars, starting their shifts. Young faces mostly. Some carried idealism in their posture. The others already wore the cynicism like armor. Webb had promised Diane he'd change things from the inside. Build bridges, reform training protocols, implement bias awareness programs. 18 months in, he'd changed 12 policies, added de-escalation requirements and expanded community oversight boards, but culture moved slower than policy. He knew that. He'd always known that. His calendar alert chimed. "Morning briefing in 5 minutes." He straightened his tie, royal blue silk, Diane's last gift, and headed for the elevator. Tonight, he had a community dinner across town. Shake hands. Listen to concerns. Show presence. Tonight everything would change. "Step out of the vehicle," Brennan repeated, his voice rising over the rain. Marcus Webb complied, moving with deliberate slowness. His hands remained visible, fingers spread. Rain plastered his shirt to his shoulders within seconds. Hayes circled around the passenger side, positioning himself at an angle. "Turn around." Hands on the vehicle. Webb's voice stayed level. "Officer, I'm reaching for my identification. It's in my jacket pocket." "I said hands on the vehicle." Brennan's hand moved to his weapon, unsnapping the holster. Webb's pulse kicked up, but his training held. 22 years on the force, and some reflexes never faded. He could read Brennan's body language, the elevated shoulders, the widened stance. Fear masquerading as authority. "I'm complying," Webb said, placing his palms on the wet hood. The metal was cold, rain-slicked. "I'm a police officer. My badge is in my inside jacket pocket. I'm going to reach for it slowly." Hayes's voice cut through from the right side. "Don't move." "Keep your hands where I can see them." Webb froze. The rain hammered down between them, each drop a drumbeat counting seconds. He'd been through hundreds of traffic stops as an officer, conducted them by the book. But standing on this side, hands on a hood, rain soaking through expensive fabric, the book felt different. "I need to see identification," Brennan said, his voice slightly uncertain now. Something in Webb's posture, maybe. The way he held himself. "I'm reaching into my jacket," Webb repeated slowly. "Inside left pocket. My badge and credentials." His hand moved with glacial precision, fingers sliding beneath the wet fabric. Finding the leather badge holder, he withdrew it slowly, holding it up into the cruiser's spotlight. The badge caught the light. Gold shield. Chief stars. Brennan's face went white. Hayes stepped back, his hand dropping from his holster. The rain continued its assault, indifferent to the moment crystallizing beneath it. "Chief Webb?" Brennan's voice cracked slightly. Webb lowered his hand, badge still visible. His expression remained neutral, professionally blank. But his eyes held everything he wasn't saying. "Officers," he said quietly. "Just that. Just their title." Hayes stammered first. "Sir, you weren't the tinted windows and—" "Stop." Webb's voice cut clean. "Body cameras on?" Both officers nodded, hands instinctively moving to the devices mounted on their chests. Red recording lights blinked steadily. "Good." Webb pocketed his badge. "What was your reasonable suspicion for this stop?" Brennan opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "The windows, sir. They appeared legal tint levels. Verified 3 months ago during inspection." Webb's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "What else?" Silence. "Just the rain and the distant hum of traffic on Oak Street. I asked you a question, Officer Brennan." "Sir, we thought—" Brennan's professional veneer cracked. "High crime area. Expensive vehicle. We were doing your job," Webb finished. His tone didn't change. "Following training." Both officers nodded, desperate for the lifeline. Webb looked at them for a long moment. Rain dripped from his nose, his chin. His white shirt clung to his frame, translucent now. He could feel his phone buzzing in his pocket, probably Chen wondering where he was. "The community dinner started in 40 minutes. Return to your vehicle," he said finally. "Resume patrol." Relief flooded their faces. They moved toward the cruiser, footsteps splashing. "Officers," Webb's voice stopped them. "File your incident report. Complete and accurate. I'll be reviewing it tomorrow morning." Their relief evaporated. They climbed into the patrol car and pulled away, leaving Webb standing alone in the rain beside his Mercedes. Red taillights disappeared around the corner. Webb remained motionless for another 30 seconds. His hands weren't shaking. They should have been, but they weren't. 22 years of training, suppressing natural reactions, maintaining composure under pressure. He got into his car, closed the door, and sat in sudden silence. The rain drummed on the roof, muffled now. He looked at his hands on the steering wheel. Steady. Professional. His reflection stared back from the rearview mirror. He barely recognized the expression. Webb drove 3 blocks before pulling into an empty parking lot behind a closed warehouse. He cut the engine and sat in darkness, rain sheeting across the windshield in waves. His phone buzzed again. Chen, he ignored it. The silence inside the car felt suffocating. He rolled down the window an inch, letting cold air and rain mist cut through. His shirt clung to his chest, cold and uncomfortable. He should drive home. Change clothes. Make the dinner. Instead, he sat. His hands still rested on the steering wheel, fingers curled around leather. He remembered teaching Maya to drive 5 years ago, how she'd gripped the wheel with white-knuckled intensity. "Relax," he'd told her. "Tension makes you vulnerable." Brennan's voice echoed in his skull. Hands on the vehicle. Stop resisting. He hadn't resisted. Hadn't moved except to comply. But the words came anyway, automatic, trained. How many body cam videos had he reviewed where those exact words preceded escalation? 50, 100. Stop resisting. The universal justification. Webb's jaw ached. He forced it to relax, realizing he'd been clenching it for the past 10 minutes. His chest burned with something he couldn't name. Not quite rage, not quite fear. Something older, deeper, exhausted. He thought about his father, dead 15 years now, a porter at Union Station for 38 years. How many times had Marcus heard the stories about keeping his head down, his voice soft, his hands visible? "Don't give them a reason," his father would say over dinner. Not even a bad day. Marcus had made himself exceptional. Top of his academy class. Highest arrest rate as a patrol officer. Commendations piling up like armor. He'd played the game perfectly. Climbed the ladder rung by careful rung. Made chief. Changed policies. And still ended up with his hands on a hood in the rain. The windshield fogged with his breath. He wiped it clear with his palm, revealing the warehouse wall ahead. Graffiti covered the bricks, tags and art and angry words. One phrase stood out, spray-painted in red. "Who watches the watchers?" Webb's phone buzzed a 3rd time. He finally looked at it. "Chen, Chief, everything okay?" "Dinner starts in 30. He typed back, "Running late. Start without me. We'll explain tomorrow." His finger hovered over the send button. Then he deleted it and typed, "Something came up. Cancel my appearance. Personal matter. Send." He started the car and drove home through streets he'd patrolled as a rookie. Every block held memories. Arrests made, lives changed, reports filed. He'd believed in the work once, in the thin blue line, in protection and service. Now he just felt tired. Webb's childhood home had been a 2-bedroom apartment in the Riverside district, back when Riverside still had corner stores and community gardens. His mother, Grace, worked night shifts as a surgical nurse. His father, James, left for the train station before dawn. Marcus and his younger sister, Tanya, learned early to be self-sufficient. James Webb had rules. 3 of them never negotiable. 1, work twice as hard as everyone else. Excellence wasn't optional. 2, never let them see you angry. Control was survival. 3, the badge means something. Respect it, even when it doesn't respect you. Marcus was 12 when he first saw his father stopped by police. They'd been walking home from a Senators game, James still wearing his porter's uniform. 2 officers stepped out of their cruiser, hands on holsters. "Where you coming from?" one asked. James's voice had gone soft, deferential. "Work, officer. Union Station. Taking my son home. They'd asked for ID, patted James down, made them wait 15 minutes while running his license." Marcus had watched his father's face remain blank, emotionless, a mask. Later at home, Marcus asked why he hadn't gotten angry. James had looked at him for a long time. "Getting angry doesn't change the game, son. It just gets you hurt. You want to change things? Get inside the system. Become the one making decisions." Marcus joined the academy at 22. His mother had cried. His father had said nothing, just gripped his shoulder and nodded once. Approval, in the only language James Webb spoke. The academy was different than expected. Instructors praised his test scores with surprise in their voices. "Webb, you've got a real future here," as if competence was remarkable. During tactical training, a white instructor told him he handled himself well after performing a textbook takedown drill. His first partner, Officer Mike Torres, became a friend. Torres taught him the unwritten rules, which neighborhoods to patrol aggressively, which to handle with kid gloves, which types of stops would get scrutinized, which would slide through. "It's not about race," Torres insisted. "It's about patterns, crime stats." Marcus learned to see the patterns, learned to write reports that justified stops, learned the language that protected officers and explained force, appeared threatening, made furtive movements, failed to comply immediately. He rose fast. Detective at 30, lieutenant at 37, captain at 42. Each promotion came with congratulations and photographs and questions about diversity initiatives. Diane had been his anchor through it all. They'd met at a community barbecue before he made detective. She taught 4th grade and believed in systemic change with fierce optimism. "You can do this," she'd whisper after long shifts when doubt crept in. "You can make it better." When she got sick, the department rallied, donated sick days, covered shifts, showed up at the hospital, the Blue family taking care of its own. At her funeral, the mayor attended, gave a speech about service and sacrifice, offered Marcus a promotion to deputy chief. "So we need good people in leadership," the mayor said. "People who understand community," Marcus accepted. Not because of ambition, because he'd promised Diane he'd finish what they started. Change from within. 18 months later, he became chief, the youngest in the city's history, the first black man to hold the position. Press conferences, interviews, photo opportunities. He'd implemented de-escalation training, body camera requirements, bias awareness workshops, changed 12 policies in 18 months. The union fought everyone, but the culture, the reflexes, the automatic assumptions Brennan and Hayes carried in their bones, those hadn't changed at all. Webb arrived at the precinct at 6 a.m., 3 hours before his official start time. The building was quiet, just the night shift wrapping up and maintenance staff emptying trash. He swiped his keycard and took the stairs to his office, avoiding the elevator's security camera. Inside, he locked the door and booted up his computer. The body camera footage from last night's stop would be automatically uploaded to the department's secure server. Protocol required officers to submit incident reports within 24 hours. Brennan and Hayes would file theirs this morning. He accessed the database and pulled up their patrol log. There, 11:47 p.m., Oaken 15th. Traffic stop, subject released without citation. Subject name, Webb. Marcus D. status, resolved without incident, resolved without incident. The phrase sat on screen like a lie. Webb clicked through to the body camera files. 2 videos, one from each officer. He started with Brennan's. The footage began with the patrol car's approach. The Mercedes appeared in frame, taillights bright in the rain. Brennan's voice came through clearly on audio. "Check that out. Tinted windows, expensive ride this neighborhood." Hayes responded. "Want to pull him over?" "Yeah, let's see what we've got." Webb paused the video. "Let's see what we've got." Not a traffic violation. Not suspicious driving. Just curiosity about an expensive car in a wrong neighborhood. He resumed playback. The stop unfolded exactly as he remembered. Brennan's commands, Webb's compliance, the moment of revelation when the badge appeared. The officer's immediate shift to apologies, but what struck Webb was what came before. Brennan's escalating tone, the hand on his weapon. Hayes positioning himself at an angle with clear sight lines, standard procedure for high-risk stops. Except this wasn't high risk. This was a luxury sedan driving below the speed limit in the rain. Webb switched to Hayes's camera. The angle was different, showing Webb's face more clearly. He watched himself comply with each command. Movement slow and deliberate, professional, unthreatening. And yet Hayes's hand never left his holster until after the badge appeared. Webb leaned back in his chair, staring at his frozen image on screen. He'd reviewed hundreds of body cam videos during his career, reviewed them for training purposes, for disciplinary hearings, for legal proceedings. He knew the patterns: aggressive posture with black suspects, elevated language, faster escalation to force. He'd seen it in footage from other departments, other cities. Dismissed it as bad apples, individual failures, not systemic issues. But now, watching himself on screen, he saw something else. This wasn't two officers making a mistake. This was two officers doing exactly what they'd been trained to do. Threat assessment, command presence, immediate control. The tactics he'd signed off on in training manuals. The protocols he'd defended in council meetings. The system wasn't broken. It was working perfectly. Webb opened his filing cabinet and pulled out the training manual he'd approved last year. Flipped to the section on traffic stops. The language was there, embedded in every paragraph. Maintain tactical advantage. Control the subject. Escalate authority if compliance is delayed. Subject, not driver. Not citizen. Subject. His phone buzzed. Chan's name appeared. Morning Chief. Officers Brennan and Hayes filed incident reports. Flagged for your review. Webb typed back on it. He pulled up the reports. Brennan's version was sanitized, professional. Conducted traffic stop based on suspected window tint violation. Subject identified as Chief Webb. Stop concluded without further incident. Hayes's report matched almost word for word. Rehearsed, protected. Webb saved both files and opened a new folder. He started pulling archived body cam footage. Every traffic stop in the district where he'd been stopped, going back 12 months. The database made it easy. Filter by location, filter by subject demographics, filter by outcome. The patterns emerged like stars appearing at dusk. Average stop duration for black drivers, 14 minutes. For white drivers, 6 minutes. Percentage of black drivers asked to exit vehicles, 82%. White drivers, 19%. Searches conducted, black drivers, 41%. White drivers, 8%. The data scrolled past, clinical and damning. Webb had seen these statistics before in his monthly reports. Dismissed them as complicated, requiring context and nuance. The union insisted the numbers reflected crime patterns, not bias, but watching his own stop on camera. He understood. He hadn't been pulled over despite being chief. He'd been pulled over because he was black, and every policy he'd implemented, every training he'd approved, every manual he'd signed, they'd all protected the system that made it inevitable. His office door rattled. A knock. "Chief, you in there?" Chen's voice. Webb closed the folders and unlocked the door. Chen stood outside with 2 coffee cups, her expression concerned. "You missed the community dinner last night," she said, handing him a cup. "Want to tell me what happened?" Webb took the coffee and gestured to his computer screen, still showing the frozen body cam image. Chen's eyes widened. "Is that—" Traffic stop. Oak and 15th, 11:47 p.m. She stepped closer, studying the screen. Her jaw tightened. Who were the officers? Brennan and Hayes. Chen exhaled slowly. "What are you going to do?" Webb looked at the frozen image, his own hands visible on the Mercedes hood. Rain falling. 2 officers positioning themselves like he was dangerous. "My job," he said quietly. "I'm going to do my job." Webb scheduled a private meeting with Brennan and Hayes for 2 p.m. in his office. No union rep, no official record, just conversation. He wanted to see their faces when they explained themselves. They arrived separately, Hayes first. The young officer stood in the doorway, posture rigid. "Chief, I want to apologize for—" "Sit." Webb gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "We'll wait for Brennan." Hayes sat, hands folded in his lap. His knee bounced slightly, nervous energy bleeding through. Webb said nothing, letting the silence expand. Through the window, patrol cars gathered for shift change below. Brennan knocked exactly at 2. He entered with more confidence than Hayes, shaking Webb's hand before sitting. "Sir, thank you for seeing us privately. We're grateful for the opportunity to—" "Walk me through your training," Webb interrupted. His voice was quiet, neutral. "Threat assessment protocols. Start there." The officers exchanged glances. Brennan spoke first, settling into familiar territory. "Standard procedures, sir. Evaluate subject behavior, environment, potential risk factors. Suspicious vehicle in high crime area. Unknown occupant. We approached with appropriate caution." Webb leaned back in his chair. "I was in a suit, driving a Mercedes. What specific risk factors justified your escalation?" Hayes cleared his throat. The tinted windows made visual confirmation difficult. "We couldn't assess legal tint levels," Webb said. "Verified during inspection 3 months ago." "What else?" Silence stretched between them. Brennan's confidence wavered slightly. "Sir, with respect, the neighborhood has elevated crime statistics. Car theft, drug trafficking. An expensive vehicle doesn't automatically—" "Where do I live, Officer Brennan?" Brennan blinked. "Sir? My home address." "Where do I live?" "I don't know, sir." Webb typed on his computer, turned the screen toward them. His home address appeared, 2 blocks from where they'd stopped him. "I was driving home, through my own neighborhood. In my own car." Hayes's face went pale. Brennan stared at the screen, comprehension dawning slowly. "Continue," Webb said. "Explain your threat assessment." Brennan's professional veneer cracked further. "Chief, I understand how this looks, but we were following training protocols. Command presence, tactical positioning, verbal compliance techniques, which I followed perfectly." Webb's tone didn't change. "I identified myself as a police officer, announced my intention to reach for my badge, moved slowly, kept my hands visible, didn't I?" Both officers nodded, and yet Officer Hayes drew his weapon. "Why?" Hayes's voice came out strained. "Movement toward the pocket. Training says—" "I announced the movement, explained what I was reaching for." Webb leaned forward. "In your professional judgment, did I pose an immediate threat?" "No, sir," Hayes whispered. "Then why did you draw?" No answer. Just the hum of the ventilation system and distant voices from the hallway. Webb pulled up the body cam footage on his screen. "I'm going to play this for you. I want you to watch it and tell me what you see." The video began. Brennan and Hayes watched themselves approach the Mercedes. Their own voices echoed from the speakers. Commands. Escalation. The moment of recognition. When it finished, Webb paused on an image of himself with hands on the hood. Rain, darkness. 2 officers positioned tactically. "What do you see?" he asked again. Brennan spoke carefully, choosing words like stepping through a minefield. "Chief, I see 2 officers conducting a traffic stop. Maybe we could have been more. There might have been better." He stopped, unable to finish. Webb nodded slowly. "I see 2 officers doing exactly what they were trained to do. Following protocols I approved. Using tactics I signed off on." He closed the laptop. "That's the problem." Relief flickered across their faces. Hayes exhaled. Brennan's shoulders relaxed slightly. "So we're cleared?" Brennan asked. "No disciplinary action?" Webb looked at them for a long moment. "I didn't say that. File your complete incident reports by end of shift. Include everything. Initial suspicion, escalation decisions, use of force considerations. Complete and accurate." The relief evaporated. "Sir," Brennan said slowly, "a complete report it could be misinterpreted. The optics—" "Are you refusing an order?" "No, sir." "Of course not." Webb stood, signaling the meeting's end. "That's all, officers." They rose, moving toward the door. In the hallway, Webb heard Hayes whisper urgently, "He's going to bury us." The door closed. Webb sat back down alone in his office. Through the window, the city stretched out beneath a gray sky. Somewhere out there, other officers were conducting stops, following the same training, using the same tactics. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Chief Webb, this is Tom Morrison, Channel 7 News. We'd like to discuss an incident involving you and 2 of your officers. Please call." Webb stared at the message. Someone had leaked the stop. Maybe Brennan or Hayes. Maybe someone else with access to body cam footage. The dam was breaking. Within an hour, Webb's office became a war room. The city attorney arrived first, followed by the police union president, then the mayor's chief of staff. Chen stood near the window, arms crossed, watching the parade of suits with barely concealed disgust. The city attorney, Marcus Levinson, spread documents across Webb's desk. "We need to contain this immediately. I've prepared a statement for your review." Webb picked up the paper and read, "Last night I was briefly detained during a routine traffic stop. The officers involved acted professionally and in accordance with department policy. The matter was resolved quickly and appropriately. I have complete confidence in the men and women of this department. Sanitized, protective, safe. Sign this," Levinson said, "and we issue it today. It controls the narrative before the media spins it into something it's not." Union President Bill Crawford leaned forward. His voice carried the weight of 30 years in uniform. "Chief Webb, we appreciate your leadership on this. These are good officers, young, still learning, but good. A public scandal benefits no one." The mayor's chief of staff, Angela Rodriguez, checked her phone. "Channel 7 has footage. I don't know how, but they're teasing a story for the 6 o'clock news. We have 3 hours." Webb set down the statement. "How did they get footage?" "Does it matter?" Levinson asked. "We need your signature now." Chen spoke from the window. "It matters if someone in this department leaked body cam footage without authorization. That's a fireable offense." Crawford's expression hardened. "Or maybe it matters if the chief plans to throw 2 officers under the bus to make himself look good." "Careful," Chen warned. Webb raised his hand, silencing them both. He read the statement again, each word a small erasure. Routine, professional, resolved. His phone buzzed. Maya's name appeared. "Dad, someone sent me a video." "Is that you? Are you okay?" The video was spreading, not just to reporters, but everywhere. His daughter had seen it. How many others? "Give me the room," Webb said quietly. The officials exchanged glances. Levinson started to protest. "Chief, we don't have time now." Webb's voice carried command weight. "All of you out." Chen remained near the window. When the others had left, she turned to face him. "What are you thinking?" Webb pulled up the body cam footage again, watching himself comply with every command. Watching Brennan's hand on his weapon. Watching Hayes position himself for a clear shot. "I'm thinking about how many times I've reviewed footage like this and called it procedure," he said. "How many complaints I've dismissed as misunderstandings. How many times I've protected the system because I was part of it. And now?" Webb looked at the unsigned statement on his desk. His career condensed into 3 paragraphs of careful lies. Sign it and the story dies. The officers keep their jobs. The department avoids scandal. Everything returns to normal. Normal. The word tasted like ash. His computer chimed, an email from Internal Affairs. The subject line read, "Urgent Media Inquiry Protocol." He opened it. The message was brief. "Chief Channel 7 has requested official comment regarding last night's traffic stop. Tayesh recommends immediate press briefing to control narrative. Union Council suggests settlement conference with involved officers. Please advise course of action. Settlement conference." Translation, "Pay them to stay quiet." Webb's office door opened without knocking. Crawford stepped back inside. His expression hardened into something between threat and plea. "Chief Webb, I need you to understand something. Officers Brennan and Hayes have families, mortgages, kids in college. You sign that statement, this goes away. You don't, and I guarantee their attorneys will paint this as harassment of good cops by a chief with an agenda." "An agenda," Webb repeated softly. "You know what I mean. This city's been looking for an excuse to gut our funding. You hand them ammunition. Every officer in this department suffers." Chen moved toward the door. "Get out, Bill." Crawford ignored her, eyes locked on Webb. "Think about your career, Marcus. You've come too far to throw it away over one traffic stop. Sign the damn paper. The office phone rang. Webb didn't answer. It rang again. Again. Through the window, Webb saw a news van pulling into the parking lot. Channel 7's logo on the side. A reporter climbed out. Camera operator following. Crawford saw it too. They're here. Last chance, Chief. Webb picked up the unsigned statement. His hand hovered over the pen on his desk. One signature. That's all it would take. His phone buzzed again. Maya, Dad, please call me. I need to know you're safe. Safe. The word meant different things depending on which side of the hood you stood. Crawford leaned closer, voice dropping. Don't be stupid, Marcus. The system protects its own. But you have to protect it first. Webb looked at him. Really looked. At the confident assumption in his eyes. The certainty that this would go away because it always went away. Because chiefs signed statements and unions protected members, and the machine kept grinding forward. Outside, the reporter was setting up on the precinct steps. Webb set down the pen without signing. Schedule a press conference, he told Chen. 1 hour, full media access. Crawford's face went crimson. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Webb said. But it's my mistake to make. Crawford stormed out, slamming the door. Chen pulled out her phone, already dialing. Webb turned back to his computer screen, to the frozen image of himself in the rain with his hands visible and his dignity stripped. His phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. Another reporter. The flood was beginning. Webb opened a new document and started typing. Not a statement, a list. Every body cam video he needed to pull. Every complaint he'd dismissed. Every policy that enabled the moment on Oak and 15th. The door opened again. Levinson stood there, face pale. Chief, you can't do a press conference without a prepared statement. You'll destroy everything. Then I guess, Webb said quietly, still typing, it's time to build something different. The press conference was scheduled for 5 p.m., 30 minutes from now. Webb sat alone in his office, door locked, phone silenced. Every few seconds, shadows passed by the frosted glass. Officials pacing, union reps conferring, attorneys building strategy. He'd sent Chen away. She'd protested, but he needed silence, needed to think. The unsigned statement still sat on his desk, a ghost of the easier path. Crawford's words echoed, think about your career. Levinson's warning, you'll destroy everything. Maybe they were right. Webb opened his desk drawer and pulled out the photograph of Diane. Her smile was warm, genuine, captured at Maya's 8th grade graduation. She'd been weak then, the cancer already winning, but she'd insisted on attending. Some moments matter, she'd whispered that night. You show up for the ones that matter. His office felt smaller than ever. The walls were closing in, covered with commendations that suddenly felt hollow. 22 years of climbing, of proving, of belonging. All of it balanced on what he said in 30 minutes. His personal phone, not the department line, buzzed. Maya, he answered. Dad? Her voice was tight, scared. Are you okay? That video, I'm fine, sweetheart. You don't sound fine. What are you going to do? The question hung between them. Webb looked at the unsigned statement, then at Diane's photograph. What would your mother tell me to do? Silence stretched. Then Maya's voice came back, steadier now. She'd tell you that some moments matter, that you show up for the ones that matter. Webb's throat tightened. Yeah, she would. Dad, people are saying you're going to cover this up. That you're going to protect those officers because... She stopped. Because what? Because you're part of the system. Because you always have been. The words hit harder than any official's warning. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Are you? Maya asked. Going to cover it up? Webb watched the shadows move past his door. Heard raised voices in the hallway. Crawford's baritone, Chen's sharp responses. The machine was already spinning, preparing to bury the truth under procedure and protocol. No, he said finally. I'm not. Then what's happening in 30 minutes? I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. Maya's breath caught. Dad, they'll destroy you. Maybe. Your career. Some moments matter, Webb repeated softly. I'm showing up for this one. Another pause. Then Maya's voice came through, thick with emotion. Mom would be proud. The call ended. Webb set down the phone and stood, straightening his tie. The royal blue silk still damp from last night's rain. He picked up Diane's photograph and looked at her smile one more time. Here goes everything, he whispered to her image. Webb unlocked his office door at 4:45. The hallway had emptied, everyone migrating toward the press room. Jen waited outside holding a tablet. I pulled everything you asked for, she said, handing him the device. Every body cam video from the past 6 months. Every complaint, every use of force report. Webb scrolled through the files. Dozens of stops, hundreds of interactions. The patterns were undeniable now that he was looking for them. There's something else, Chen said. She pulled up a video file dated 3 months earlier. Officer Brennan. Different stop, same neighborhood. Webb pressed play. The footage showed Brennan approaching a vehicle, a beat-up Honda with a young black man at the wheel. The escalation was immediate. Commands barked. The driver pulled from the car. Hands on the hood within 30 seconds. Did he file a complaint? Webb asked. No, he was arrested for outstanding parking tickets. Spent 2 nights in jail before his public defender got him out. Chen's expression was grim. He never owned the Honda. It was his girlfriend's car. He was borrowing it. Webb closed the video. How many others? I found 14 similar stops in Brennan's records alone. Hayes has 9, all in the same district. All black or Latino drivers. None resulted in complaints, because most people don't know how or they're afraid of retaliation. The data formed a picture Webb had been refusing to see. Not 2 bad officers. A pattern, a system. The union's planning a vote of no confidence, Chen added quietly. Crawford's already got 30 signatures. After your press conference, he'll probably have more. What about you? Webb asked. Where do you stand? Chen met his eyes. I've been waiting 5 years for someone in leadership to have the guts to say what everyone knows. If you're going down for this, I'm going with you. Webb nodded slowly. Then let's give them something to vote about. They walked together toward the press room. The hallway was lined with officers, some supportive, most wary. Webb recognized faces. Young recruits he'd sworn in, veterans who'd taught him the ropes, all of them wondering what came next. Crawford intercepted them at the press room door. Last chance, Marcus. Walk away now and I'll tell my guys to stand down. Do this and you're done. Not just here, everywhere. No chief position in any city will touch you after this. Webb looked past him to the room beyond. Cameras were set up, reporters ready. The lights were harsh, unforgiving. I was done the moment Brennan put his hand on his weapon, Webb said. I just didn't know it yet. He pushed past Crawford into the press room. The space was packed. Every local outlet, some national correspondents. The body cam footage had gone viral in the past hour, social media carrying it further than any official statement could contain. Questions erupted immediately. Chief Webb, what happened last night? Were you racially profiled by your own officers? Will there be disciplinary action? Webb took his position at the podium, Chen standing to his left. He looked out at the cameras, the microphones, the hungry expressions of reporters sensing a story. Behind them, through the open door, he saw Crawford talking urgently with union reps. Levinson stood apart, phone pressed to his ear, probably talking to the mayor. Webb pulled out his notes, except they weren't notes. They were the statistics, the body cam footage files, the pattern he'd been protecting. 6 months ago, Webb began, his voice steady, I approved a new training protocol for traffic stops. The goal was officer safety and professional presence. Today I'm going to show you what that protocol looks like in practice. He nodded to Chen. She connected the tablet to the display screen behind him. The first video appeared. Brennan's stop from 3 months ago. The reporters went silent, watching. Webb narrated each moment. The immediate escalation. The commands. The fear in the driver's face. The way compliance still led to handcuffs. This is one example, Webb said. I have 13 more from the same officer. 9 from his partner. These aren't bad apples. This is standard procedure. This is what I approved. The room erupted with questions. Webb raised his hand. I'm not finished. He pulled up the next video, then the next. A litany of stops, of escalations, of black and brown faces pressed against hoods. The data scrolled past on the screen. Average stop times, search rates, force incidents. Last night, Webb said, I experienced what hundreds of people in this city experience regularly. I was stopped without reasonable suspicion. I was ordered from my vehicle without justification. I complied perfectly and a weapon was still drawn on me. He paused. The only difference between me and everyone else on these videos is that I had a badge. And that's when everything changed. He let that sit for a moment. That's the problem. Justice shouldn't depend on whether you have a badge. It should be the standard, not the exception. More questions erupted. Webb pointed to a reporter in front. Chief Webb, are you saying your entire department is corrupt? No, I'm saying the system I've been protecting is broken, and I helped break it. Another reporter. What happens to Officers Brennan and Hayes? They'll face a full disciplinary review. But they're not the real problem. I am. Every supervisor who signed off on these tactics, every training manual that prioritizes control over community, every policy that made last night inevitable. Crawford pushed into the room. This is not an official department statement. Yes, it is, Webb said, voice cutting sharp. I'm the chief. This is as official as it gets. He turned back to the cameras. Starting Monday, we're suspending all traffic stops pending a complete review of protocols. Every body cam video from the past year will be analyzed by an independent civilian board. Every complaint, filed or not, will be investigated, and I'm implementing mandatory bias training, not as a checkbox exercise, but as a condition of continued employment. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Crawford's face went purple. Chen stood firm at Webb's side, her presence a statement of its own. Webb raised his voice over the chaos. I became a police officer because my father told me to change the system from inside. I became chief believing I could. Tonight, I learned that protecting the system means protecting injustice. So I'm done protecting it. Starting now. He looked directly into the lead camera. To everyone who's been stopped, searched, or harassed by officers in this department, I apologize. I failed you. We failed you. That changes now. Webb stepped back from the podium. Questions continued to fly, but he was finished. Chen handed him the tablet, and they walked toward the side exit. Crawford blocked their path. You just ended your career. No, Webb said. I just started doing my job. The emergency department meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday morning. Webb arrived at 7, knowing word had already spread. His phone had been ringing non-stop since the press conference. Reporters, council members. The mayor demanding his resignation, he'd ignored them all. By 8:30, the main briefing room was packed. Every officer in the department, mandatory attendance per Webb's order. Union reps lined the back wall. Levinson sat near the door, legal pad ready. The mayor's liaison, Rodriguez, occupied a front row seat, her expression professionally blank. Cameras recorded everything per city policy. Webb had insisted on that. At 9 exactly, Webb entered. The room fell silent. He walked to the podium and looked out at the sea of uniforms. Some faces were curious. Most were hostile. Crawford sat in the back, arms crossed, eyes burning. This meeting is on the record, Webb began. Everything said here will be part of the public file. Crawford stood. Chief, the union objects to this proceeding. We haven't had adequate time to... Sit down, Bill. Webb's voice carried command weight. You'll have your chance to speak. Crawford hesitated, then sat. Webb continued. 3 nights ago I was stopped by 2 of our officers. You've all seen the footage by now. What you haven't seen is the context. He nodded to Chen, who operated the display screen. The compilation began. Not just Webb's stop, but the 13 others. Each one played for 30 seconds, enough to show the pattern. Young faces, old faces, men and women, all black or Latino, all escalated immediately. The room shifted uncomfortably. Some officers looked away. Others watched with hardening expressions. When the final video ended, Webb spoke. "I've signed off on every policy that made these stops possible. Every training protocol that prioritizes control over de-escalation. Every use of force guideline that treats compliance as optional." He paused. "I'm as responsible for these videos as anyone else in this room." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Webb raised his hand for silence. "Starting today, that changes. Chen," she distributed folders to the front row. "Inside you'll find new guidelines. Traffic stops require documented, reasonable suspicion. Body cameras must be activated before any contact. Verbal warnings precede physical contact, unless there's imminent danger. Use of force requires immediate supervisor review." An officer in the third row stood. "Chief, these guidelines make it impossible to do our jobs." "No," Webb said. "They make it impossible to do your jobs the way we've been doing them." Another officer. "You're throwing us under the bus to save your reputation." "My reputation is already destroyed," Webb said flatly. "This isn't about me. It's about fixing a system that treats citizens like subjects." Crawford stood again, his voice booming. "This is political theater. You're sacrificing good officers to appease activists and media." He gestured to the room. "These men and women risk their lives every day. They deserve support, not persecution. They deserve leadership that doesn't set them up to fail," Webb shot back. "These videos, every single one, follow approved tactics. We trained officers to escalate. We gave them scripts that justify force. We created a system where compliance sometimes isn't enough. And now we act surprised when the community doesn't trust us." "So what's your solution?" Crawford demanded. "Tie our hands completely? Let criminals run free while officers second-guess every decision?" Webb stepped from behind the podium. "My solution is accountability. Real accountability, not internal reviews that protect officers and bury complaints. Independent oversight, transparent discipline, and consequences for violations." He pulled up another video, his own stop from Brennan's body camera. "Look at this. Watch Officer Brennan's approach. Listen to his assumptions. I'm in a suit driving a Mercedes, and he still treats me like a threat. Why?" "Silence." "Because that's what we taught him." Webb answered his own question. "We taught him that expensive cars in certain neighborhoods are suspicious. That hesitation equals danger. That compliance can be forced through intimidation." He looked around the room. "We taught wrong." An older officer, a veteran Webb recognized from his patrol days, stood slowly. "Chief, with respect, we police high-crime areas. The stats justify our tactics." "Do they?" Webb pulled up the data. "Here are the stats. 82% of black drivers in this district are asked to exit their vehicles. 19% of white drivers. Same district, same crime rate." "Explain that." The veteran sat down without answering. Chen stepped forward. "We've also pulled stop outcomes. Of the 214 traffic stops involving black drivers last year, 3 resulted in actual arrests. That's a 1.4% hit rate. Meanwhile, we've got dozens of complaints, eroded community trust, and videos like these going viral." Rodriguez, the mayor's liaison, stood. "Chief Webb, the mayor's office supports reform, but these changes require council approval, budget allocation, then get approval," Webb said. "This isn't a request. These policies take effect immediately under my authority as chief. The council can ratify them or replace me." The room erupted. Officers shouting questions. Union reps conferring frantically. Crawford's voice rose above the chaos. "This is illegal. You can't unilaterally change policy." "Actually, I can," Chen interjected, holding up the city charter. "Emergency Authority, Section 14, Subsection C. The chief may implement immediate policy changes when public safety requires it. This qualifies. Webb looked at Crawford. You want to challenge that legally, go ahead. While you're filing paperwork, these policies are in effect. A young officer in the front row raised her hand. Webb recognized her. Officer Sarah Martinez, one of last year's recruits. She spoke hesitantly. Chief, what about Officers Brennan and Hayes? What happens to them? Webb had been waiting for this question. They're suspended for 30 days without pay. Mandatory retraining. Formal reprimand in their files. If there's another incident of unjustified escalation, termination, Crawford exploded. You're destroying careers over one traffic stop. Webb turned to face him fully. No, Bill. I'm holding officers accountable for violating the standards we're supposed to uphold. Brennan and Hayes followed bad training. That's on me. But they still made choices. They still saw a black man and assumed threat. That's on them. He pulled up the final video, the Honda stop from 3 months earlier. This is Officer Brennan. Different stop, same pattern. The driver was guilty of borrowing his girlfriend's car. He spent 2 nights in jail for parking tickets that weren't even his. No complaint was filed because he didn't know how. Because the system is designed to protect us, not him. The room had gone silent again. Some officers looked uncomfortable, others defensive. A few nodded slowly, recognition dawning. Martinez stood again. Chief, I support the new policies. I think we can do better. Chen's voice came softly but clearly. Motion to implement the new guidelines. Martinez. Seconded. Crawford moved to block it. This isn't a democracy. We don't vote on policy. Actually, Webb said, we do. Show of hands. Everyone who supports implementing these guidelines immediately. 3 hands rose. Then 7. Then 15. Then 30. More than half the room. Crawford's face went crimson. This vote is meaningless. The union will fight every change. Then fight, Webb said. While you're fighting, we'll be protecting and serving. The way we should have been all along. He turned back to the full room. These policies take effect immediately. Every stop gets reviewed. Every complaint gets investigated. Body cameras stay on. If you can't work under these rules, there's the door. If you can, welcome to the new standard. Webb gathered his materials. Dismissed. As officers filed out, some avoided his eyes. Others nodded respect. Martinez approached the podium. Chief, thank you. I joined to help people. Sometimes it feels like we're trained to do the opposite. Not anymore, Webb said. Chen waited until the room cleared, then handed him her phone. Oh, you need to see this. The screen showed a news alert. Police chief faces no confidence vote. Union president. Webb has betrayed his officers. Webb handed back the phone. Let them vote. You could lose your job. I already lost everything that matters, Webb said. Now I'm trying to earn it back. 2 weeks later, the no-confidence vote failed. 42% of officers supported Crawford's motion. 58% stood with Webb. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough. The mayor, reading political winds, publicly endorsed the new policies. The city council allocated funding for independent oversight. 3 officers resigned in protest. 17 others requested transfers to different precincts, but 234 remained. Webb stood in the precinct parking lot at shift change, watching officers head to their patrol cars. The ritual was the same: gear check, partner briefings, radio tests. But something had shifted. Officers moved with more awareness, less automatic certainty. Martinez walked past, giving him a slight nod. Other young officers followed her lead. The veterans were harder to read, but they were adapting. Some grudgingly, some genuinely. Brennan and Hayes completed their suspensions and returned to duty. Webb assigned them to community outreach for 6 months, working with neighborhood groups, attending council meetings, hearing directly from people they'd stopped. It wasn't punishment, it was education. Chen found him watching the sunset. You got a minute? They walked to his office. She handed him an envelope. Resignation letter? Transfer request. Deputy chief position opened in Seattle. They want someone with reform experience. She smiled slightly. Turns out blowing up your career makes you attractive to cities serious about change. Webb opened the envelope but didn't read it. You earned this. So did you. They offered you the chief position. Webb looked at her. And? I told them I needed to talk to you first. Figured you might want to finish what you started here. He turned to the window. The city stretched out below, lights flickering on as darkness settled. Somewhere out there, officers were conducting stops, using new protocols, being watched by new oversight, slowly, painfully changing. Take the job, Webb said. Seattle needs you. You'll do good work there, Chen nodded. What about you? I'm staying. For now. Webb smiled slightly. Someone has to make sure these policies stick. After Chen left, Webb sat alone in his office. His phone buzzed. Maya calling from college. Hey, sweetheart, just saw the news. The vote failed. Dad, you won. Webb looked at the commendations on his wall, at Diane's photograph, at the city beyond his window. I didn't win anything. I just stopped losing. That's not what people are saying. There are protests scheduled, supportive ones. Community groups want to meet with you. Someone started a petition calling you a hero. I'm not a hero, Maya. I'm just doing what I should have done years ago. Silence stretched. Then Maya's voice came through, warm and proud. Mom would be proud anyway. Yeah, Webb said softly. I hope so. After the call ended, he packed up his desk. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Union negotiations, policy implementations, the slow work of cultural change. But tonight he could breathe. He picked up Diane's photograph one final time. I showed up, he whispered to her smile. For the moment that mattered. He placed the photo in his briefcase and turned off the lights. The office went dark behind him as he walked toward the elevator. Through the building's windows, the city glowed with evening light. Messy, complicated, and worth fighting for. Webb stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed. The car descended. And somewhere in the city he'd sworn to serve, things were beginning, finally, slowly, to change. 6 months after the traffic stop, Webb drove through the intersection of Oak and 15th. Rain was falling again, softer this time. His windshield wipers traced arcs through the water, clearing and clearing again. He thought about systems and silence, about how easy it was to become part of the machinery, to confuse compliance with integrity. He'd spent 22 years climbing a ladder that leaned against the wrong wall. The hardest part wasn't facing Brennan and Hayes. It wasn't the press conference or the union vote or the threats to his career. The hardest part was admitting he'd been wrong. That excellence and promotion and good intentions weren't enough when the system itself was broken. Change didn't come from working within systems that demanded silence. It came from people willing to break that silence, even when it cost everything. Webb wasn't naive enough to think he'd fixed everything. The work stretched ahead like the road in his headlights, long, uncertain, dark in places. Officers would resist. The union would fight. Old habits died hard, and institutional culture died harder. But 234 officers showed up for new training. Civilian oversight boards were meeting monthly. Complaints were being investigated transparently. It wasn't revolution. It was evolution. Slow, painful, necessary. The Mercedes passed through the intersection where it had all changed. No red and blue lights tonight. Just rain and street lamps and the quiet hum of evening traffic. Webb thought about his father's rules. Work twice as hard. Never let them see you angry. The badge means something. James Webb had taught survival in a system that demanded it. But survival wasn't the same as justice. Maybe the badge did mean something. But only if the people wearing it were willing to question what it protected. His phone sat silent in the cup holder. No crises tonight, no emergencies. Just the work of building something better from the wreckage of what was. Webb turned onto his street. past houses where families ate dinner and children did homework and people lived lives that should never depend on the color of their skin or the mercy of a traffic stop. He pulled into his driveway and cut the engine. The rain drummed on the roof, steady and cleansing. Through his windshield he could see his front door, the warm light from inside, the normalcy of home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow he'd return to the precinct and face officers who still resisted change, policies that needed refinement, a culture that moved like continental drift. Tomorrow the work continued, but tonight Marcus Webb sat in his car and let himself feel what he'd suppressed for 22 years. Not rage, not fear. Something simpler. Relief. The system had broken him open. And in breaking, he'd finally learned to see what had always been there. The truth that excellence wasn't enough. That silence was complicity. That real change required not climbing the ladder, but dismantling it entirely and building something new. He got out of the car and walked through the rain to his front door. Behind him the city stretched into darkness. Ahead the light waited. Some moments demand more than survival. They demand truth no matter the cost. Marcus Webb had learned that lesson on a rain-slicked street, with his hands on a hood and his dignity stripped away. He'd spent his life trying to earn a place in a system that would never fully accept him. Now he was building a system that wouldn't require anyone else to earn what should have been their right all along. The door closed behind him. The rain continued to fall, and in the morning the work would begin again.